The Commonplace book is one of those curious family documents that you get in the early Elizabethan period, in fact all the way through the Tudor period. It's, if you like, an exercise book or a notebook that was the recordings and jottings of, in this particular case, a couple of generations of one family, the Appleyards. And it's really a record of the things that were not only important at the time to various people, but important to them as individuals and as a family. The challenge with this particular document is that the binding is very loose and shaky. The cover has actually been held together with gaffer tape, and it's one of those things which is in need of a little bit of tender loving care, where we're really lucky because it's in a shaky condition that we've won a grant from the National Manuscripts Conservation Trust, and they're funding us to have a specialist paper conservator look at it, and they're going to be able to not only clean it but to repair the binding, and that in itself should tell us an awful lot more about the manuscript, as well as making it safe to use for researchers in the future. We're back here with the Commonplace book. It looks not really much like a book anymore. What are your feelings looking at it now?
Oh, it's still a most remarkable object. It is such a joy to work on. What we have here is some of the disbound pages from the Commonplace book. Just in terms of material, we have our original boards and original spine, which was completely obscured when I first saw it. It's absolutely wonderful to have it back to how it would have been when it was used as a book to be recorded in. You can see now the original leather. It's a beautiful calf leather, and you still have the majority of the metalwork, these wonderful clasps and clasp plates and the bosses to stop the binding from being worn. Charming evidence of use in this very sort of wavy board profile, which is from the clasps being in action. And you know, you've got an awful lot of evidence of construction and material and use just in the boards alone before you get onto this wonderful, wonderful text block. You have some really very charming aspects to this very homemade, individually created object. This was somebody enjoying themselves, constructing this and writing this and bringing it together.
It's a really unique expression of someone's personality, isn't it? It's all the things that they were interested in, and they've just splurged and put it all down. They've taken bits from here, there and everywhere. There's bits of Latin, there's bits of Greek, there's science.
There's a lot of information here about received knowledge and what they've learned, as well as some artistic talent. We have the most wonderful depictions of real and fantastical beasts. Not only do you get this lovely sort of winged lion and this fantastic goat, but you also get much more sort of humanist type of illustration. You've got somebody here in what looks like a pair of golden shorts, brandishing some sort of weapon, I would say. And so there's some humour and a very natural way of illustrating it. The condition is actually, given that it was, I suspect, probably heavily used, it's not bad. You do have some deterioration of the media in particular. How it would have been put on the page would have been with some sort of ground and adhesive, and you can see how that's deteriorated and worn with use. It would have flaked off with the bending of the pages, but otherwise it's in pretty good shape.
Why have we got these different paper sizes here? Because we've got what looks like a bifolium, a folded page, and we've got single sheets as well.
Some of the pages are classic, what's called bifolia, and this would have been paper that was bought in this size and folded. But because they have inserted things and made things their own, you have a big old mix, and you've also got evidence of old repairs. So clearly it's where the pages do fold open. People have been interested in looking at them for a long, long time, just like we are now. But the majority of the text block, particularly where you don't have any decoration, still maintains that bifolium format.
So we know how the book was put together, we've got all the constituent parts, but how do you put it back together again?
Book conservation is a really fantastic discipline because you never wear the textiles that are conserved for museums. You never drink from the teacups that are in museums. They don't have to be used. Whereas a book has to, by its very nature, continue to perform a function beyond just being handled. If we're going to look at the information inside and enjoy the illustrations in this case, we have to conserve it in a way that's going to allow it to be opened. So what I'll be trying to do is return it to that original state using methods that allow the minimum of impact and intervention should it ever need to be undone again. The basic process is to get it back into a text block form. You sew using linen thread. I sew on a sewing frame, a wooden sewing frame, where you stretch the alum toward supports down from a bar, which gives you the tension that you need, and you're pressing down each section to allow it to be compacted into the text block. You then have a text block that will open very, very nicely. I will have to do some adhesive on the spine and some lining, but it'll be extremely minimal, and that's just to hold it in shape. The boards will then be effectively laced back on. I'll be lifting up this leather here without damaging it to allow that to go at the very least onto the outside of the board, but if I can feed it through the board and get really good board attachment that way. Because I'm really confident about the strength of my sewing and the strength of my board attachment if we've laced it in, we don't need to have a hugely powerful spine for the level of use it's going to have. So what I'm going to look at is a way of shaping my leather repair to fit into this original spine that still allows the book to function as a book and to have strength, but not so it bulks it up. Now that we've got this fantastic result from getting that off, I think it would be an absolute crime not to reuse the original spine because it's such a beauty. The whole purpose of conservation is all about access and use, and without that there's little point really. So it's great that it's going to have much wider coverage. It's one thing I often think, the objects that we work on, people would never have believed that we were giving them such reverence and credence even. You know, they wouldn't have been able to sort of understand why these things were important to us. But what's charming about this is that it's got a huge amount of human touch and human activity and human input.
This is the Commonplace book of Henry Appleyard, now back and conserved. So I'm looking forward to actually having a look at it now. Undo these conservation grade pieces of string. And here it is in acid-free tissue. There it is. We're going to display this open, so we'll have to have a special mount made for it, and the reason for that is we can't just open it up and lay it flat. We have to actually cradle it very slightly because that then protects the spine. Although the spine has been repaired, so this is where we used to have a nice bit of black gaffer tape that had been put on a long time ago to hold the spine on. It's been rebacked with some new leather, and the original 17th century leather has been glued down onto it. The last thing we want to do is create any strain on it and bend it back. And you can see even the original clasp is working. So these books would originally have had pairs of clasps to hold them closed, and to stop them getting dog-eared, you would have these metal plates put on the corners of your volumes so that it could take the knocks if it was being carried around. And you can see, it's just amazing as a volume. Lots and lots of tiny handwriting and the most amazing animals and beasts and fold outs. So this is part of a piece of paper that's been folded into place within that, which requires very careful opening up. And you can really see the tiny, tiny handwriting here knowledge of God. And some spaces left for the future. It makes me feel like I want to turn the cameras off and just go into a corner and try and read it because it's just such a wonderful insight into a family or person's mind, what they were interested in, and it really gives an insight into the sort of world that they lived in and their own interests. You can say that everybody was by their nature religious at this time, but as we all know, religion comes in many different shades, and so this gives you an insight into the way that their mind worked and what they thought. And then we've got a chronicle of the world as part of this, so they can see themselves as part of that, not only Christian tradition, but biblical tradition of the origins of the world. This manuscript starts off in about 1560, and it's continued at different stages by the family. We know that it's in use in the 1590s as well, and Henry Appleyard, who is the prime author of this, draws attention to his own family. So he has a list of the mayors of Norwich, and so his list of the mayors of Norwich starts in 1403, because that's when his ancestor William Appleyard was the mayor of Norwich. And don't bother with anyone before then, just go for the important figure. And that goes all the way down to 1606. So it's an amazing testament to one family, and literally written only 3 miles away from where we're sitting now, which is lovely.